You had some tunnel traffic is what we
A little bit.
heard. Yeah.
You're probably going to get used to that a little bit too.
No,
when you
I
take
don't
the
think I'm
guys
doing
down.
the tunnel. Yeah, the tunnel, but yeah, coming in from the airport, we've had a few recruits come in, so
Yeah.
we've dealt with it a little bit.
Yeah. You ready to go?
Like a battery.
Like a battery. "23 years of college coaching experience, 18 years of coaching experience at the Power Conference level, former NFL Pro Bowler, a TED Talk speaker from H-Town all the way to Hampton. Van Malone, the new head football coach at Hampton University." So when I say all of that to you, how do you process that?
Wow, long time coming, H-Town to H-Town, right? I couldn't be more excited to be here. I couldn't be more excited to be able to lead this program, a storied program, a storied university. Game day will be here soon, but I think we have a lot more preparation that we got to be able to put in before that day.
Yeah. We talked about walking out here to the field, and I said, "Oh, it's a nice day out." And you said, "You know what? I'll give it to you. The sun's shining." How different of a feel is it? I mean, you've moved around all over the country, from Fargo, North Dakota, to Michigan, to Texas, to Oklahoma, right? So, first of all, why is it so easy for you to pick up and move and chase the dream the way that you are?
Well, when you coach, you understand that that's a part of it. What happens is when you have kids, when you have a family, they're not always locked into your dreams. Your 7-year-old, your 10-year-old son has friends. And, I always think about it, and I said this to young coaches, is that, when you're out here chasing your dreams and you're praying for the opportunities, you got to understand your kids are praying too, and they're probably praying to stay here with their friends. And so for me, it's always been about putting myself in position to where I can make a bigger impact, where I can impact others. And for this opportunity, to be able to be a head coach, to be able to be a head coach here at Hampton University, there's no greater impact than I can make at this moment in my life.
There's a lot of off the field impact that you had as well in your tenure, in your coaching tenure too, all dating back to Houston and your time in Texas. And I want to dive into that soon, but spent the last 7 years at Kansas State as the cornerbacks coach, the assistant head coach of the team. And I was watching a press conference that you did about 6 months ago, and you took a minute right at the beginning of the press conference and you said, "Man, year 7, you said it's like a for sale sign," right? How did that process to you in terms of, 7 years in the same place, Kansas State, a power school, and then ending up coming here? How difficult of a separation was that from K-State?
Well, it's always difficult when you transition. Unfortunately, sometimes the transition is you get fired, right? And I like to use those terms, when you get fired. But it's always difficult. It's difficult on your family. And again, like I stated, you as a coach, you may have dreams, you may have things that you may be chasing, but that doesn't always mean that your family is chasing. So yes, it was a very difficult separation, but what I get here at Hampton is well worth it.
Yeah. 5-year career in the NFL as a safety, drafted 57th overall in the 94 draft by the Lions, 2-time Pro Bowler, including your rookie year. So you were an impact player in the NFL when you were in the league. And so how does that translate as a DB in the NFL, coming here now, you're a defensive-minded guy, to now head coach? What do you take away from the player, Van Malone?
Well, I think, and I've talked to our team and our staff about this, is that the values of our program, they start with me. The approach, the way we do things, they start with me. And I've always been a player who chased excellence. I've always been a student I tell you what, maybe not always a student who chased excellence, but most of my academic career, I chased excellence. And so that's a big part of who I am. So consequently, that's going to be a big part of what our program is about. And as I've evaluated my life as a player And I do that all the time to make sure that I am always connected to the players that I'm coaching. Yeah, I might have played 74 years ago, but I like to make sure I understand that I sat in their seats one day. And that always keeps me connected. It always keeps me grounded and able to relate to who our players are. And so the toughness, like that was my thing as a player. I was always going to be tough. I was going to always do everything I could on the field and off the field to try to do the right things. I was always going to be a leader. I was always going to be caring of my teammates and my coaches. And so that's the culture that we're trying to build. And those accolades that you might have mentioned before, man, they are great for a player to be able to accomplish some of those things. But I didn't do it alone. Just like in this venture, I won't do it alone. It's going to take the support of our staff, the support of our administration, the support of our fan base in this Hampton community. And so I'm excited for us to all be able to do this thing, as the young people say, to do this thing together.
About a month and change ago, you get introduced as the head coach of the team. You go to the convocation center, the press conference, you meet with the team, everything like that. Talk to me about the process of getting this job, coming here, meeting the team, and your feelings when you get in front of that podium for the first time and you see the Pirate faithful around you.
I researched this university before I stepped on the plane and before I accepted this job. And President Williams and his wife, as I, again, was doing my research to see the leaders of this program, to see the leader of this program and his passion, and to see A.D. Henderson and his passion for this program, it really made it an easy sell for me, because I've been at universities where it was not the same passion from those people in that position. It was just a different level of passion, and that excited me. And so when I see people who are fired up about the place that they are, and they're fired up about the missions that they're on, it excites me. And so to find that we are on the same page, that we are aligned in what we want for Hampton University, I couldn't say no, and I couldn't wait to get here and get started. So to have the opportunity to be at that press conference, again, that was just another marker for me that gave me an understanding of the passion of this community, of this fan base for the program. And then when I had the opportunity to talk to the young people, the players on the team, I did the press conference, but then I got on with each one of them individually on a Zoom. And I wanted to know about them first. I wanted to know about their families second. And then I wanted to know two things more. I wanted to know how do we take the program to the next level in their individual eyes. And then I wanted to know what I could do as a head coach to maximize who they were on the field and off the field. And so it was a great conversation from each individual. And to be very honest, over the course of those days that we did those interviews, those young people, they all kind of said the same thing. They want culture. They want an identity. They want a coach who has a relationship with them. They want a staff who would be committed to developing them and having a relationship with them and serving them. And that's the kind of staff that I built, and that's the head coach that I am.
When you hit that podium for the first time, and for anybody who hasn't seen the press conference, it is one heck of a watch because of how passionate you are when you're up on the microphone and you're talking for the first time to this Hampton crowd. What were your emotions? What were your feelings like stepping up to that podium, holding up that jersey with A.D. Henderson for the first time? Just walk me through your emotions on that day.
Well, as a young man, right? I wanted to coach since I was 7, and I'm gonna say since I was in the 7th grade, and so to have the opportunity to step into that place, into that world, the emotions, like from many years ago, came back. But the passion that you saw was really the responsibility that I understand that you take on when you're in that position. I came here to win, and I've said it a few times to our staff. I've said it to our players that we came here to win. But guess what? So did they, right? So I'm not going to disrespect their hopes and dreams. We all came here to raise the standards of this program. And so every day that I wake up, I go back to that podium, and that passion, right? That was not just for that moment. That's just the way we're going to have to live, right? For the entirety of the time that we're in this position. Because when I was standing at that podium, man, I considered it an unbelievable blessing, right? I considered it an unbelievable opportunity that these people, the president, the athletic director, the administration, that they've given me this opportunity to lead this program. And the passion was to make them understand that I'm going to do everything I can to uphold that, to make sure that I didn't let them down, right? And that's, I think the staff that I've built, they feel the same way about the president, the athletic director, the administration, me, and these kids as I do. I hate to call them kids, these young men as I do. And so the passion is not just for that day. It's for every day. It's for the wonderful opportunity we have to be here to lead this program.
I always wanted a high-paying career, but I didn't want to be stuck at a desk. In just 4 months, Tidewater Community College taught me how to drive a truck. The pay is great, and I have the independence I've always wanted. They helped me with financial aid and showed me how to enroll. TCC even helped me find a job. Now I'm on my way. Tidewater Community College. From here, go anywhere.
I want to read a quote, my favorite quote from your press conference. You said, "Let me be very clear about who we are. We're going to outwork you. That's very important to me. We're going to start fast and finish strong. Hampton has always been built on discipline and preparation, and those values will never change. We'll train with purpose and train with intent, and when the fourth quarter comes, those habits won't separate from us." And when I heard that for the first time, I remember being on the air, and I hear that play, and the first thing I said when they kick it back to me was, I love that passion and intensity. What is the motto? I'm assuming it's that. But when you step onto this field for the first time, for your first game, home game, as the head coach of this team, how is that going to be displayed to the fans?
Well, to me, listen, man, you make decisions, right? You make decisions as to how you're going to operate every day. And for us, again, I say, the core values of this team, they have to start with my values. They have to start with who I am. If you're going to be in a battle with me, it's going to be physical, right? It's going to be physical. I had the opportunity many years ago to play the game. Today, it might not be physical if you're in a battle with me. Not today, right? I'm a shell of myself, right? But I'm going to try the best I can to make it physical, right? So when our players come out here, it's going to be physical. And there's no relenting from that, right? We don't accept it any other way. That it's going to be physical. But I think, as I've heard the basketball coaches operate, I hear the lacrosse coach operate, anytime I hear Hampton athletics, I'm hearing physicality. Okay, so it's accepted here to be physical. So we're gonna be physical. This is a prestigious university, right? And so to me, like we have intelligent young people. So we're not gonna do things to hurt ourselves. We're not gonna do things that we would say are dumb. We're gonna be smarter. We're gonna take pride in being smarter than the opponent. Right? Not doing things that smart teams and smart young people, we're not going to do those things that smart people don't do, right? Next thing is, man, you got to be able to work. One thing that my kids at home, I want to see them to see me as someone who works, right? Who works, who gives max effort in everything that he does. If you don't give, that's the easiest thing to give, right? You don't have to be the fastest, the strongest, And even though it's a mandate that we are smart, we don't have to be the smartest, right? But you got to be able to work, right? You can work. You can work. You can put in your max effort. When you leave the field of play, when we leave the field of play, we want to be drained. We want to be exhausted. We want to go into that locker room. We want to watch the video the next day and say that I gave everything that I had. We want to do the same thing as coaches. The expectation is that the fans, you can do the same thing, right? When you leave this game, we want you cheering as hard. Everybody has to join forces to be able to take us to where we need to be. But the players who I have direct connection with, that's the way we're going to play the game. All those things that you said. We're going to have to bring you into the locker room and get a pregame speech.
It would be an honor. So we saw the intense side, right? The work as hard as you possibly can, max effort every day. That side of you. I was digging up an old video that I saw from your time at Oklahoma State as the cornerbacks coach, and you were on the field running practice, and you looked at one of your players and you said, "Is the sun too bright for you? I'll make a call, try to turn it down." So when it comes to that side of you, is that side still there? Are you still the fun-loving type of guy? You had, one of your former counterparts, coworkers, whatever you want to call it, Buddy Wyatt said, you got to keep your feet hot around Coach Malone because he's a bit of a jokester, a bit of a prankster. Is that still you?
You know what? Your core is your core, right? Your core is your core, and that is my core. Mr. Big Time head coach, right? I still have a few practical jokes in me. And I think, listen, that is a part of the connection. That is a part of the relationship. That is what makes me different than another coach. That's what makes me different than another head coach, is that I have the ability to push these players as hard as I can push them to understand, oh, there's Coach Malone, let's snap to it.
Yeah.
But now it's time to, hey, loosen up, right? Because the game is very simple, right? Winning is very simple. And then I'll give you something else later that'll tell you that winning is very difficult. But you have to be able to have relationship enough to where players are comfortable with you to let their hair down, where your staff is comfortable enough to let their hair down. As the head coach, I understand, because I've been an assistant coach, I understand the intensity that a head coach must operate with, but he also must have the ability to be able to relate to the people who are in the foxhole with him. So yeah, I believe that's still there, and that guy will show up quite often.
In the conversations that you've had with the players, specifically maybe like the seniors on this team who have been through a lot of change coaching-wise, you come in, you enter this game now here at Hampton, and what have those conversations been like? Obviously, you're going to go out on the recruiting trail. You're going to get guys to come in here for the first year, for their first year. But for the returners that have seen turnover here, that haven't seen success, Hampton hasn't had a winning season since 2018. What have you told them specifically, the guys that have stuck it out, that have been here, about, hey, this is the culture, and have they seen that out of you yet, that desire to want to change?
Well, the thing is that what I told them on day one is who I've been, and that's who I'm going to always be. And so the promise that I've made to them is that we're going to be who we said we're going to be. As we laid it out, the core values of discipline, of commitment, of toughness, of being selfless, building a family, a culture of family, of relationship, as those guys have come in and out of the football offices to meet with coaches. I've seen hugs, I've seen handshakes, I've seen people with hands on shoulders, I've seen one-on-one intentional conversations. That's what we promised them. When we come out and we've worked with them, there's been intense, right? But we've treated them, we've challenged them, but we've treated them like young men. And that's what we promised. We still have a lot more to go. We still have a lot more many more opportunities to heat the pot, to turn up the heat. But they've gotten so far what we said they would get. And that's the purpose as we continue on, is that they're going to know what they get every single day. And so those conversations with the older guys, they've really been about understanding that we're going to honor them. But the expectations, because you've been around here, the expectations have risen. That we need your leadership, that we need you to lead the charge as we move forward. Recruiting, listen, there's not been a year where a team has not recruited players onto the team. And so sometimes when there's transition, the player will think, oh my, he's bringing in his guys. Yes, he is, but you're his guys as well. And actually, what we together collectively are doing is we're bringing in the guys who will help us to be what we want to be. If we need a running back who is a power runner and we don't have one, everybody will understand we need that guy. Right. If we need a kicker who is really good at the specialty kicks, everybody will understand he's going to help us to be able to do that. And so I think clear, transparent communication with your team is important. And we've talked to our team about recruiting. We've talked to them about rev share. We've talked to them about the transfer portal. And I think that as we continue to grow, to trust one another, they'll understand that every move that we make is all in the effort to make sure that we are fielding the best team that we can. And everybody, every day, is being evaluated to find out, to determine who is the best at those positions. And I think our players in general will respect and understand that.
This podcast is also an opportunity for people at home to peek behind the curtain and kind of get an inside look at you as a human being as well. So Houston, Texas native, we talked about it's a beautiful day in January for Virginia Beach and Norfolk and Hampton roads, but you got that Texas blood in you. You went to the Waltrip High School. So you play your high school ball there, you coach there. Talk about your roots. Coming up from Houston, being a Texan, go Longhorns, right? I know it probably hurt you a little bit to go coach the Aggies a little bit, but talk about your Texas roots and how you grew up and how football was always in your blood and just the type of kid that you were.
Well, I think, growing up in Houston, Texas, like you said, football is just a part of what you do.
Yep.
And it was an opportunity for me in those days to make friends, and some of them lifetime friends that I talked to about once a week. And it was a resource for me to be able to have people who sometimes were older than me that I could lean in on as an older brother who went off to college and who could give me advice on making my college selection. And then it gave me an opportunity to, like I said, throughout my life, I've always wanted to impact people, to help people discover their best, right? And so it gave me an opportunity as I went off to college to turn back and lean in on those student athletes who were at my old high school. And then, like you said, eventually ended up coaching at that same school. So many opportunities, many moments for me have been full circle. Even when you mentioned playing at Texas, but then at some point coaching for the rival school. As I did that, I realized, man, you know what? If I talk to my friends in the Longhorn Nation, they would say to me, hey man, your life was going great. And then you had to go coach with the Aggies. And then the Aggie faithful would say to me, hey man, everybody makes mistakes. Finally, you came to right.
To your
you came
senses,
to the good
right?
side.
Yeah.
And so what I learned from that actually is both of those are great universities. Both athletic programs are phenomenal. But if you listen to one side of it, you'll get a totally different story than the other side. And I just happen to be so blessed to be able to get it on both sides. And again, that life for me, growing up, it just made it so easy to understand that this is my purpose, that this coaching is my calling, because sports throughout my life have been like an unbelievable blessing, an unbelievable step for me to be able to travel all over the world, really, to be able to meet great people, to be able to have an opportunity to learn from people who didn't grow up like me, who didn't look like me, who have had experiences that maybe I have not had as well, share with them experiences that maybe they hadn't had. And so it's just been an unbelievable blessing for me to be able to grow and come through the ranks to now be at the real HU.
And that is timely for when you guys play Howard later in the year. I assume that even though you're with the Aggies, and I don't want to burn the Aggies faithful, but it's still horns up all day, right?
For sure, right? For sure, and that's understandable. But because I've had the opportunity to coach at so many great universities, again, as a coach, there are rivalries, and you love those rivalries. But as a coach, you learn to respect the differences in the different programs, and sometimes even in recruiting, we recruit young people, and then we find out their uncle went to one of our rival schools. Well, okay, we can't be too hard on that rival school as we're talking to the uncle, right?
Because we got family, right?
Because he's got to, right? And so, as coaches, you just learn how to relate and interrelate with the rivals. Of course, when we step out onto the field, like anything short of victory is not good enough, right? And so, but we have to be friends with our rivals sometimes. It pays off in recruiting for sure.
So back in 2000, the Houston Police Department honored you with Lifesaver of the Year award, and so I was curious what that was and how a high school football coach ends up receiving an honor like that.
So we had a young lady. So when you coach high school, you deal with all kinds of things. So we had a young lady who was having a difficult time. For the last couple weeks, she had been having a real challenging time. And she decided that she was going to end it all. And that's unfortunate that a young person would think that way. And so we have to make sure that we always are on the lookout for our young people. Well, this young lady went up to the 3rd floor, I believe it was, and she's out, like she's climbed out a window and she's out on the easement. So what are we doing? What do we do, right? I'm a coach. What do I do? Hey, okay, I gotta act. Whoa, young lady, what are you doing? You know, I'm trying to talk to her. No, this is it. I want to just jump. No, wait, let's talk just for a minute before you decide to do that, right? I don't know all the proper techniques for talking a person off this ledge, but I don't want to also see this young lady jump. So I got to figure it out really quickly. That's one of my words I use for the players, figure it out. And so I'm talking to her and I'm thinking, man, at some points in this conversation, she gets emotional. What if I say something to trigger her and she just takes off? So I'm trying to be calm. I'm trying to wait for somebody else to come and take over this situation. And so as we're talking, I said, you know what? Really quickly, it just hit me. You know what? She's not jumping. So we might both fly out, whatever, but she's not jumping while I'm standing here. So I just lunged at her, grabbed her, pulled her in. I, got close enough to lunge at her, grab her, pull her in, and whew, that was it. And so because of that, I got honored with a Lifesaver of the Year award. But, I just think of that moment. How important it is for us to just keep our eyes on young people.
I could see that definitely impacted you as a coach, as a person, as a role model, and as a mentor for people that you interact with, especially your players today who may be going through something like that. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
For sure. And the funny thing is that, I don't know, I don't know the young lady's name. To this day, I don't know her name. But when you're in that environment, you have a responsibility to be all in. And like I said earlier, you may have to sometimes figure it out. And so I do it 5 times over if given the opportunity.
How often do you tell that story?
I don't think I've ever told it.
How'd that feel?
Yeah, well, listen, nobody likes to be soft,
Yeah.
right? Nobody likes to show emotion. But I think as a leader, sometimes you have to be soft. As a leader, you do have emotion. But remember, I'm the same guy who says I'm very physical, I'm very tough. But I'll never have a problem showing emotion because I want to be human. I want to be someone who has different sides, right? And that's who I am.
In 2022, continuing with your work off the field, you and Will Howard, who was the quarterback at the time at Kansas State, got in with that bone marrow match donor program. And you talked about before the podcast how you helped to save a couple of lives. How did you and Will find out about that initiative? How did you guys want to get involved with that? And when you found out that you impacted people the way that you did, what was that feeling like?
Well, it's kind of, Will and I ended up at the same point, but we came 2 very different ways. Will being from Pennsylvania, Will had known about the program, the NMDP program. Will had been a Maxwell Award winner in high school, again, being from that area. And so they had talked to Will about possibly bringing this program to Kansas State. So here's Will over here with the conversations that he's having. At the same time, through the coaching ranks, I'm getting conversations with Andy Talley, who wanted to speak to my group. I have a group at the AFCA, the Minority Coaches Committee, then the Minority Coaches Forum, which is a big group meeting that we have at the National Coaches Convention. And so Andy wants to speak to this group. And the reason he wants to speak to this group is that because there are not many minorities in the database for this donor registry. And so he's really trying to push to get more minority students involved in this donor registry. So he wants to speak to my group for 5 minutes. I said, all right, man, 5 minutes. I don't really know what he's talking about, but I'm gonna give him 5 minutes. Well, Andy Talley, you give him 5, he's gonna take 8. So he took his 8. And so he left the room and we continued on with our meeting, with our forum. And the next year he comes back, he said, I'm gonna give you 10 this time. Give him 10, he takes 12. Meeting's over, comes back the next year, I said, listen, you already know you're speaking, go ahead, right? So he speaks, but this time I listen. Before, I was just trying to get him off the stage and I was counting his minutes, but this time I listened. And when I listened, I heard about the program. And I heard that what they want are college-age students to just simply swab their mouths. And if they swab their mouths and they're a match, they can save somebody's life. So as he leaves the stage, I said, hey, we're going to do that at Kansas State. That's important to me. We're going to do that at Kansas State. Just let me know what we got to do, and we're going to do it. So we did it's time to gather up for this program. And we're on a Zoom, and Will's on the Zoom. I'm like, what are you doing? He says to me, what are you doing? I said, we almost said at the same time, well, I talked to them about doing a program at K-State. Well, again, we're both working at the same time to do this program. So it was great that Will wanted to do it because I was going to be looking for student athletes to lead this program. Will, a quarterback, great person to lead the charge. And our players, they were loving to be a part of it. And so they did a great job, Will, as well as our team, to push this effort. And I think the first year we had 3 matches, and all 3 of those matches agreed to become donors. So we essentially saved 3 lives. And over the course of the program, we saved 6 lives. And you know, I wear rings, bowl rings, championship rings, but when we were presented with that award later on after the ceremony, we received a Maxwell ring. And I wear that ring most proudly because it really has nothing to do with winning a championship. It has nothing to do with how many games and how many touchdowns or how many interceptions. It has to do with taking steps to save someone's life. And our players committed to that, our coaches committed to that, and we saved people's lives. I always look at it from my position as a coach. You know, there's a lot of people, they'll come and they'll be in the stands and they'll cheer and they'll jeer for what happens on the football field. And when you win as a coach, you'll be the greatest thing ever. But I always think of it, there's a doctor who just left an emergency room, and all he did, he washed, he scrubbed up, and he went out and he ate a donut, and he went back in and he saved another person's life. And so that may be trivial to me, but not if it's not trivial to the person whose brother he saved, or the father, you know, that son. It's not trivial to them. It's very important to them. And what we do out here, it's amazing. It's cool. It's the most fun thing in the world. But there are some people who really have important roles in our society. And I always like to honor those people. And yeah, okay, what I do is cool. I love it. I wouldn't do it, you know, wouldn't do anything else. But really, like, there's a lot more important things in our world than how many first downs you made, you know, how many touchdowns you made, or how many games you won. And honestly, when you're gone, yeah, maybe they'll talk about that. But I hope they talk about how many lives I had an opportunity to impact.
2 more and then we'll get you warmed up. How important is that for you then to carry that over into your guys at Hampton and not only make them into the best football players that they could possibly be, but turn them into good community men here in Hampton and in Hampton Roads as well?
This university is about that. You know, this university is this is the sports arena, right? This is where football happens. But that's a small part of who these young people are. And I always think of it like, if the only thing I do is teach you how to play cover 3, if the only thing that I do is teach you how to tackle or how to catch a ball, if that's all that we do, we fail. Because coaches who I've had over the years that I'm still connected to, they taught me so many more lessons. And I think it's important. Yes, these young men, they are scholarship athletes. We pay for their schooling, and there's an agreement, right? There's some transactions that happen in this environment. But my staff and we think that there's so much more that doesn't show up on the contract, right? That we have a responsibility for. And I have examples in Tremaine Jackson, who's the head coach at Prairie View A&M. I coached that young man in high school. And when he was in high school, I couldn't get rid of him. He was at my house every day. And he followed me. He came to the National Coaches Convention. He came to all kinds of clinics because of who I was to him. And he wanted to one day operate in the same vein that I did. So I think for us as coaches, that's vitally important to realize that. For these young men on this team, I think I have a great group of coaches who are committed to that relationship, committed to pouring into these young people. Because I see it already, and we just barely know them.
Last one. You talked about the Maxwell ring, how much that meant. You have that ring on your finger, the Big 12 K-State ring. Does Van Malone get a CAA ring right next to that K-State ring that's got a nice little Hampton logo on it?
Well, I think that, first of all, I don't wear this ring much. But yes, we do. That's why we're here, right? That's why we're here. For us in this moment, that's our excellence. That's what we're chasing. That's why these young people came here. Is they want to be recognized amongst the best who play the game. And so when you aspire to go to that place, then you have to work for that. Now that's not something that we talk about every day. That's not conversation every day, right? Because it becomes just conversation. What we do is we work towards the goals. We work towards the goal. You don't have to talk about it. People say, where I'm from, don't talk about it, be about it, right? And so, somebody want to put that on their wall in their dorm room, in their apartment, that's just fine. But we just want to work, right? We just want to work, and we want to let the chips fall however they fall. But we want to put ourselves in the best position to be able to have success. And that doesn't start in September, right? That's already started. And our players, they understand that's already started. But it's not just what happens out here. It's what happens in the classroom. It's what happens in the community. Because we believe how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so that's what our players, we're continually pouring that into them so that they understand and they believe in that.
Hampton head football coach Van Malone coming in, making waves already. We're excited to follow you in your inaugural season as the head coach here at HU. So congratulations on that. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
For another episode of Sportswrap Sit Downs, I'm James Cantata. We will catch you on the next one. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you.
That was cool.